Welcome to the Multithreaded Income Podcast, the definitive podcast for savvy professionals who refuse to be bottlenecked by a single revenue stream. I'm your host, Kevin Griffin, and in this space, we explore, dissect, and analyze the strategies that turn your expertise into multiple optimized income streams. If you believe that your knowledge and skills should be leveraged in more ways than just one, you're in the right place. Now, in each episode, I talk to folks just like you and me who are exploring multi-threaded income on their own terms. Don't forget to sign up with us on social media for updates, exclusive content, and to just continue this conversation. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the show, everyone. It is commentary time. I'm joined with Sean and Chad. How you gentlemen doing today?
Doing well.
Right.
Hope you're doing well.
Awesome. Well, I had the opportunity to sit down and actually talk to Brett Fisher about his life and his business. Sean and Chad had the opportunity to listen to the first cut of the interview, and we're going to sit down. We're going to talk about some of the big ideas that we pulled from the interview and hopefully lessons that you all can learn along the way. So instead of me going first, I want to save myself for last. Chad, I'm going to ask you, what was the big idea you pulled from Brett's interview?
Yeah, well, there's a lot, right? And it was a really good episode. I thoroughly enjoyed listening to you two go back and forth. But I guess the main thing I'll talk about today is what he mentioned, that Venn diagram. So when he was talking about getting clients, or even I think he also kind of fools with this or takes this into account when he's talking about projects, what projects he's going to do. And that's his Venn diagram. And the things he said was, it needs to be feeding me, not draining me. He said it has to be bringing in revenue, and it needs to build an audience. So those are the three things. And I just think that's kind of a critical thing to keep in mind. So, Stephen Covey, the whole book he had multiple books, but one was, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And one of the habits there is beginning with the end in mind, right? And that's just like a principle I just hold on to a lot, try to anyway. Not always good at it, but that's what I try to do. And I think just when you're starting out or trying to determine, how you're going to go and create side income or grow your side income so it can be your main income. I think this advice here on this whole Venn diagram is really, really good. Because if it's not feeding you and it's actually draining you, you can't keep it up long term. It doesn't matter how disciplined you are, doesn't matter how hard worker you are, it's like if it's not feeding you and it's actually draining energy out, it really cannot be sustained. So I think that being in there is super important. And then, of course, if it's not bringing in revenue, it's not bringing in money, well, you don't have a business. You're not going to be in business very long there. So it has to be critical. And the interesting thing is, I tend to go on premium pricing versus trying to be the cheapest on stuff, because, there's no advantage to be the second cheapest, right? There's no advantage being second cheapest. And if you're the cheapest, well, it's just always going to be providing as much value as you can for as little as you can, and you're just going to get priced out of the game anyway, and which is great for the market. But as consultants and, providing value, it's all about determining where that value is and having a premium price, but also in order to charge that price, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to raise my prices, right? But you charge a price. In order to do that, you have to provide tons and tons of value, something nobody else in the market is doing. That's, I think, where the key's at. So it's not just about, oh, I can charge more money, I'm going to double my rates. You have to actually provide value. But the whole point is revenue has to come in. And if you have that revenue coming in and it's actually a premium revenue, you can then hire a team. You can then bring in other people. You can actually solve problems in more creative ways.
At some point, right, Chad, it becomes like a supply and demand equation, right? Like it's like, okay, I have X amount of hours or X amount of bandwidth or resources, right? And so naturally you can start to charge more, right? As you get more clients, you get more, more revenue potentially, or you reached a point where your expenses are so high, you need to raise your revenue from all the demand coming in. So it is interesting to try and figure out what is the right price to start with, whether you're just trying to, get a bunch of, and we see this a lot actually, where people come in, new businesses, especially in the labor industry, right? Manual labor industry, like building fences, for example, down here in Gulf Shores. It's like people will come in and be the cheapest contractor, right, at first, just to get the business, right? or like mowing lawns, right? Landscaping and stuff. And then once they get it, they start to realize, like good clients, bad clients. And, now I have the opportunity to really start raising my prices and reducing the amount of jobs that I want to take. It's more becomes about quality over quantity at that point.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Because the thing is, if you, sometimes you have to do, and he mentioned this too, sometimes you just have to do stuff for money, something for money, right? Because you're just getting started out. You can't sit there and say, I can charge this premium rate because I have all this experience, I have all this stuff. I'm gonna provide all this value. It's like we haven't really proved that value yet. You haven't proven that you can do that or that you will do that. And so unless timing is just right and you have just the right person, it's very hard to kind of charge this premium rate and go straight into it. So usually you have to build yourself up into that. But knowing that that's your end goal when you get started is a really powerful thing, versus just getting in, just trying to get business and then spending a decade working at these low rates, not realizing that, oh, there's actually a better way to do this. And the other thing he mentioned, that third piece of the diagram was building an audience. And and again, I think this is more from the content management side of stuff that he's doing. But in general, if you think about the audience, it's all about, you have this notion of a funnel, right? So you have like what's called a sales funnel, and you have potential leads that come into your funnel, and you kind of filter down. Then ultimately they become a client, or they buy your product, right? Depending if it's a service or an actual product that you're selling. And in order to actually make a decent amount of money, you need to have a lot of people coming into your funnel, a lot of people coming in to know about you, because the best sales you can get are inbound sales. When they call you up, like, hey, Kevin, I want to work with you. I saw you online and I want to work with you. And you're like, well, great. My fee is this. I mean, it's like the hard part's already done versus, people have to go out and call and send emails everywhere. I mean, it's just a totally different ballgame. So that's where that build audience, to me, it's all about setting yourself up so that lead generation is much easier.
I used a couple of phrases, and one you're going to touch on is when you get those inbound leads and coming in. I call it acting the professional. There was this point in my consulting freelancing career where I was just kind of guessing what I was doing, and I would go into a call and be like, well, maybe I could charge you this, this, and this, and it was kind of a negotiation with myself to figure out what I should charge someone. And then much later in my career, and it's what I do now, it's all right, this is how much it costs. You get X, Y, and Z, and it's not even an option. Like, there's no negotiation. It's like, this, you want to employ me for a project, these are the terms. It's not like I can go to Walmart and pick stuff off the shelf and go, all right, well, you're telling me it costs this much, but what if I only give you that much? Yeah, consulting works the same way. And you're talking about the Venn diagram. I have another saying. It's if it's not a hell yes, it's a no. The way that I gauge a lot of things I'm working on, because we just have a very finite amount of time and energy to work on projects. And I know Brett feels the same way. Like, if I'm going to start working on something or make a conscious effort to work on a project or initiative, it's got to be a hell yes. If not, it's got to be a no, because I need to keep the room open for the things I'm going to be very passionate about.
I had something like that recently, and someone was asking, because I have a bunch of friends, business owner friends, people that are looking for software technology at some point, and was asking for me to help build them a system. And yeah, it was like, okay, what would make this a hell yes, right? Exactly kind of what you said there. And I was like, and I was like, well, this is the number that comes to mind initially that I would need to really get excited about and make it happen. The project was exciting, but also I knew that just time wise, right? I'm fortunate enough to be at a point, in my career and where I feel like, I don't really have to take on some of these, jobs that are kind of lower quality or try and like bid the lowest and all that stuff. So really it's a point where, hey, I know like I can do a better job, higher quality. I can hire someone to help me and I can really kind of manage that. But here's the price. And and it is what it is, but I know people get sticker shock when they see that. And this person did as well. So I'm kind of glad they did in this case. And I didn't have to pick up that job, because I know if that didn't happen, I would have got probably stuck in something that I really wouldn't have enjoyed and really wouldn't have seen the value that I really needed in order to make that job happen.
Yeah, I think the key is being able to be at a point where you know you can provide the value, right? Because if you know that you can bring in this company an extra $250,000 a year, then charge them $50,000 is a no brainer, right? Even if it's a 10 hours worth of work or something, right? So that's crazy hourly rate. It's like, doesn't matter. If you know that you can bring them in $250,000, you can easily charge them $50,000 without blinking an eye, because, you know, the amount of value they get is extraordinary, especially if you can work it out where they only have to pay once they actually get their first 50,000 or whatever. Like when you're confident in what you can provide and you can provide that type of value, you can charge really high rates. Even when somebody else's would charge, $100 an hour, and charge them basically $1,000 for that, you're charging $50,000. It's like, well, that's 50 times what the normal rate is. Well, yeah, but I can guarantee that you're getting, pretty much 5 times the amount of what I'm charging here. So it's all about figuring out what you can provide and the value you can stack on. I've heard before, and I think it's really valuable, is you don't decrease your prices, you increase the value, right? Instead of saying that I'm negotiating on my price, oh, you're $100 an hour, I need to really be $85 an hour. It's like, no, I can't do $85 an hour, I can't do $95 an hour, $100 an hour, or $200 an hour, whatever the number is, right? And it's like, well, if you're trying to negotiate on that, it's like, no, but this is what I would do for that. And again, in general, it's a bad idea, just for folks listening, to charge per hour. So you want to charge per hour per value, and not actually do the hourly thing, because it's very difficult. Because at that point, as soon as you start going down that path of charge per hour, you are the commodity, and then I can go, I can get Sean for 95 and Kevin for 85, and actually you can't, obviously, but the whole point is you can go get somebody else for just a little bit less if you're the commodity. So you don't price yourself as a commodity.
Nice. And I think a lot of times, like, I can see it where problems are presented to me, and I guess my thought or my brain goes to like opportunity costs. When I talk to a lot of business owners, they see it as, hey, I'm spending 20 hours a week in this, and yeah, they could value their time to see how much it would be worth to, or how long it would really take. As I get more into private equity, actually, this is something I think about more, is like, how long would it take for me to regain my investment to make my money back? Right. That's always a good thing to think about when you're going to make a purchase or an expense or build something. Not only how much time it's going to save you, but how long it's going to take to get back. And then also, now that I have this time back, in addition, now what new value can I create? And that kind of shifts me in a direction I want to talk about a little bit, which is more of the like strategical prioritization stuff. Because this is me. So he talked a lot about time management. One of the things I kind of saw Brett evolving into, honestly, as I heard him talk, was like from small consultant shop or, individual really, right, into now he's kind of growing back into, hey, I have a team and I need to make sure that whole team's aligned on the right priorities, going after the right objectives, doing the right thing for the week. He said something like, this is the big goal of the week, right? That's where he's kind of at right now. I kind of see him actually evolving more into that strategical, like running a whole, a bigger company kind of transitional phase. And I've been in large corporations, I've been in small companies. A lot of the time, what happens is, and I'm, more and more, is just aligning. You're trying to get alignment across the board, all constantly on the right priorities, the right things we should be doing. Like, I have engineers that can do great work. They can, I can coach them. I can build an awesome engineering department that can, deliver stuff. But the question is always, are they delivering the right, right? And you've heard the whole, or you maybe haven't heard. There was, a book in the past. I think Kevin may have introduced it to me, or maybe you, Chad, about putting the important before the urgent, right? And ensuring that every week, right, every day almost, that you're chipping away at the important stuff. So I know me personally, like, I want to walk away at the end of the day feeling like I was pretty productive, right? I hit something that helped achieve that big priority that I know I need to work towards. So in the morning, the first thing I always do is like, I'm going to go for the one big rock every day. Like, that's my focus. Like, do a big rock first, right? And then maybe the other stuff that comes up throughout the day, I'll chip away at.
I know for me, it's the type of work I'm doing right now, full time. At the end of the week, it's Friday, and I'll go, all right, what did I accomplish this week? And some weeks, it feels like I did nothing because there's no tangible thing that I accomplished. But I put out 20 fires, and I helped other members of my team get on task so they can get their work done. It's the worst feeling in the world to get to the end of the day on Friday and realize I don't feel like I accomplished anything. This was a week. This was a wasted week. What what am I going to do with myself? All right, I'll just start fresh on Monday. And it turns out it's the same thing. I could really learn from that. There's one big task that needs to get accomplished every week. And there's nothing to saying if you get it done on Monday, you can't have another big task you try to get done that week.
True.
Yeah, something I've seen around this and I really like a lot is you have three tasks a week again, but they all support the big thing, whatever the big thing is. And then you take those three tasks, and if you can figure out how to break those down to three things you got to get done that day in order to get those three big things done for the week that ultimately hits your main goal, then that's a great way to do it. Again, that gets more into almost trying to fine tune your daily calendar, though. And it sounds like Brett, that's not really his gig, and that's fine. He mentioned something about the Pomodoro technique on this, and how he kind of shies away from it. And I'm kind of the same way. I used to really enjoy the Pomodoro technique, but the 25 minutes was too short. So I pretty much did like three in a row, and went like an hour and a half, and then took a 15-minute break, and that seemed to work out better for me. But then all of a sudden it was just, I don't know, I kind of got out of doing that, and I didn't. It was kind of a neat thing, but it really didn't seem to provide a ton of value to me personally. So it's just interesting. I definitely think I found myself getting in the weeds on, wow, this is my block a day and my block a day. And to your point, Kevin, when you have a fire or something happens and you feel like the whole day's blown now because, or whatever, instead of just like, well, no, I'm not going to pack my entire day with this. I'm going to have margin. This is what I'm trying to get done this week, period. And as long as you're disciplined enough to actually start working on it on Monday and not leave it till Friday, you're good. And if you don't have enough discipline to do that, then you need to work on that part.
I like something I think, Kevin, you've also said in the past, making time to work on the business instead of in the business. And really, I see that more as the strategical stuff versus the tactical stuff. That's, again, corporate talk. Even when you're just starting out, it's like that. I remember, Kevin, we had the Two Frugal Dudes podcast, right? Like, we constantly, I had to think about, okay, is it really worth like building some images to go put on Twitter, right? And like, spend my time, the little extra time I had every week, is it building little tweets, right, that we can automatically schedule and ship out, right? Or is it better spent, go into network and, build some relationship with someone that we want to have on our podcast, right? It's all about trade-offs. Everything's about trade-offs. I mean, think of software architecture is about trade-offs. System design is about trade-off, right? I mean, that's all it is. And then same with priorities as well. I mean, when you're trying to think about how to spend your time, especially in the beginning, right? Like, what is the right marketing channel, right? Are we going to use YouTube? Are we going to use Instagram? Twitter? Of course, you want to use it all, but where is the most value, spent? Where should we target?
It's looking at any particular task and asking yourself, is this something that requires me to do it? Like with Two Frugal Dudes, we didn't do a lot of our own social. We had Nikita who did the social for us. And the real core benefit we brought to the business was being the face of the business and interacting with the folks and doing the networking. But I don't need to do social media. You didn't need to do social media. And I know with Brett, like a lot of stuff he does and he has his team for, he's asked himself that question: do I need to do the editing on the videos? And the answer is no. You can pay an editor to do the editing on the videos for you. So I probably didn't really allude to this to the audience or in the interview, but I have a very long history with Brett, and Brett and I have known each other for way too long. And so I knew Brett in the first, technically the second job I had out of college, and I worked under him. He was kind of a mentor to me as when I was a young kind of technologist figuring out what I wanted to do. And we just stayed friends since. And a part of that journey was we formed a business. So, and Brett did not talk about it at all during the interview. And it was a little business called Windsitter. We would develop basically monitoring software for Windows servers. It sounds really boring, and we didn't execute on it the way that we probably should have. But we had wanted Windsitter to be that thing that we still do our full-time job, and then we have this thing on the side that we're working towards. And we worked and we worked and we worked and we worked on it. And I think it's an important thing to talk about. Windsitter was a failure. It's went 3 years, and eventually Brett and I had a conversation. Said, is this worth to keep going with? And the answer was no. So we took the little bit of money that we made on the business, we paid off the server bills that we had, and I think we went out to a nice dinner. And that was the extent of what we made on Windsitter. I've had this unique opportunity with Brett to kind of be side saddle with him on a lot of the initiatives he started. It's really nice now to see him finding success in something that works really well. I wanted Windsitter to work, but things happen. We learned a lot along the way. And I think in the footnote of his current business is actually Windsitter, because his Docker training that he's doing, now the work he's doing with Maven, that all stemmed from him trying to figure out how to deploy Node.js consistently in our production environments. We can see where he is today, but it really all started with Windsitter because he picked up Docker as a solution to a very particular problem that we had. I'm super happy with where he is.
Yeah, I think the key, what you just said there, is fantastic. It's a matter of, okay, yeah, Windsitter was quote unquote a failure, and actually the fact that you're able to go to a nice dinner after a few years, like you didn't go in debt for it, right? You know, I mean, it's going from, yeah, there you go. So from that perspective, it wasn't actually a failure. But the key is, even if it was, the point is what you learned during those 3 years, and that's kind of the main thing in all this stuff. So that's why, jump back to the Venn diagram real quick. That whole, it has to energize you. It can't drain your energy. Is so important, because it's all about the journey. It's all about what you're learning through this progress, through the process. Okay, he had, what do you say, 6 or 7 businesses over the 20 years,
if not more. Yeah,
and most of them didn't work out. His latest one was working out well for him, right? And that's, between us, we have the same situation. So the key is getting started sooner rather than later. So the sooner you get started, the sooner you get some of these failures. But again, you can't look at them as failures, and definitely don't look at it like, oh, this failed, therefore I'm a failure. That messes up your mind. You can't get into that pathway. And I've been there once. It just kind of drove me down for about 18 months. I was just, it's like, well, I'm just out. I'm just not, just because it actually came down to my mindset of saying, well, this thing failed, therefore I'm a failure. I'm not going to do anything else. It took me a while to kind of come out of that. But the key is, if I hadn't lost those 18 months, I've been further down the road than I am now, because the key that I've realized since then is it is about the journey. It's about what you're learning as you go. So even if something is quote unquote a failure, it's okay, because the time that you spent there wasn't for nothing. You've actually learned what not to do, at least one thing not to do, if not a bunch of different things.
And you've probably heard the famous saying many times, right? You don't win or fail, you win or learn, right? I remember the first time someone said that. I don't know why I never thought of it like that, but it really is the truth. I mean, that's a living example right there with Kevin, right? Like you don't fail. The word fail is pretty rough. It's always just an opportunity. It's teaching you something, and you have to try and like kind of reflect, right? Like on that, what you did, and like get the lesson out of it every time. What did I learn through that? What actually was the benefit? Because there always is. And it's going to ultimately mold you into the next step that you have on your journey.
All right, guys. That was a fun conversation. I appreciate you hanging out with me and discussing some of the finer points. Thank you to the audience for hanging out with us too. And we'll see you next time for another episode of the Multithreaded Income Podcast. Thanks for listening to the Multithreaded Income Podcast. I've been your host, Kevin Griffin. Please reach out to us on social media at MT Income, wherever you get your socials from. And feel free to join one of our upcoming challenges at multithreadedincome.com. We'll see you next time.